Welcome to this special edition of Water Polo Wednesday. This is part one of a 5-part series where we break down the conference championships of each of the major 5 conferences. On this episode, we're going to break down the Northeast Water Polo Conference. Princeton and Harvard and Princeton, they've been the story all year. They split the regular season, they shared the league title. Princeton earned the bye on goal differential, but who's going to qualify for the NC2A tournament? We've got 2 great guests and an all-encompassing analysis. Let's dig in, because it's time for the Northeast Water Polo Conference breakdown on this episode of Water Polo Wednesday.
Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of Water Polo Wednesdays with Wes and Clay. I'm Clay.
I'm Wes.
Welcome to the Northeast Water Polo Conference breakdown. West, let's just do it. This has been an exciting conference this year with 2 main frontrunners. Who are we on the lookout for?
Yeah, thanks, Clay. This conference has been one of the more interesting ones to watch from afar. In fact, it's one of 2 conferences without an undefeated regular season champ. And I think that adds some intrigue to this. Princeton and Harvard split their head-to-head matchup. Princeton earning the bye based on goal differential. They won their match by more than what Harvard won their match by. And so, they'll get a bye. It's 7 teams, and so 1 team gets a bye there.
Okay, wow, this is going to be great. So it's going to be a rather competitive tournament, you're saying?
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm looking forward to seeing who comes out on top. I think what's interesting is that, Brown is a formidable team, and Harvard will have to face Brown in the semifinal prior to probably getting Princeton in the final, and you can't overlook them. And so I think it'll be fascinating to see how that tournament shakes out, kind of going forward.
Okay, these are the teams. I want to hear a little bit more about the other teams and specifically the players and who to look out for.
Yeah, so on Princeton, you've got the known commodities. You've got Roko Pozaric, you got Vladran Mitrovic. Roko is their goal scorer and leader in points. Well, Vladran is very good, very big center defender. He can also score. But the players, though, that make the difference are for them are freshman Gavin Appledorn, who's been a real breath of fresh air for them out of Newport Beach. JP Ole, I really like, a lefty out of Greenwich, older brother of Ryan Ole. They've got another third brother coming up through the ranks. I think they've moved to Newport Beach for that. JP leads the team in assists. Everything really runs through him. They've got a couple other lefties, but everything does kind of run through JP. He's a good passer. He's got good vision. And so you're going to watch him. He'll have the ball in his hand quite a bit. In the center, they're getting solid play from Luke Johnston, a junior out of Sacred Heart Prep up here in Atherton, and George Karras. George, more of a pure center. Luke, more of a post-up. Princeton loves to run a ton of double post to draw more exclusions. And so they're always working for that man advantage, time of possession type of thing. Their coach, Dusty Litvack, is very big on analytics. These younger coaches we're starting to see very big on analytics, the Brian Flax of the world and Litvack. Appledorn, going back to him, leads the team in ejections drawn as part of the Princeton double post. He does double post as well. He drives quite a bit, always a lot of movement. So in order to beat a team like Princeton, you're going to need to play very gap sound defense, meaning, hey, stay on your blocks, don't get over aggressive, don't go for the steal a lot of the time, play that zone defense and drive defense, because otherwise they can score in a lot of different ways, and then JP Ole does a nice job distributing the ball where it needs to go. Everything does run through him on the 4-5, so you'd love to see good passing lefties.
Well, okay. So no walk in the park for Harvard then. What is Harvard bringing to this matchup, and how do they stop Princeton?
Watching them a couple of times this year, Harvard brings the best center west of the 5 freeway. And James Rozolis Hill, he's an absolute force to be reckoned with. A 6'6", extremely quick guy for his size, very long. His wingspan is well past 6'6", very strong. He can step out, he can turn, he can score very quickly. He has over 100 goals already this season, over 85 exclusions drawn, and he put up 4 goals against Pacific. The vaunted Pacific defender Mihailo Vukovic got him kicked out of the game early. 3 exclusions on Mihailo. If that tells you anything, who I think is the best center defender, best player in the country right now. Now, on the 1-2 side, they have Jake Tsotsadze out of Sacred Heart Prep, also here in Atherton. He's had a good career there, following the footsteps of his older brother, Alex. Jake has been a very consistent contributor alongside Owen Hale, a senior out of Loyola High School. And the thing about this Harvard team, I think they have very good self-awareness. They do a lot of really different things, right? They're not like very predictable at all. And they know that about themselves. Coach Ted Minnis, one of our favorites here, has them working always for like that open man. They don't force a lot, meaning if there's a drop, they're not going to jam it into the center, which you love to see them move and move without the ball. They do that quite well to work for kind of better opportunities. James, for example, will beat you as playing the 2, not the 2 post. He'll move outside and shoot from the 2. Okay, the 2 position at the flat there. And so they do things that kind of put you in uncomfortable positions that you're not necessarily expecting. Now, they don't have a lights out lefty. They have a good lefty, but we're not talking like a Kiefer Black type. And so they're going to want the exclusions. They want to get the ball into the center if they can, or create some mismatches on the perimeter so that they can retain possession. And Coach Minnis has his team playing really well together. They've gotten better throughout the season. And while Harvard maybe doesn't possess the top end talent that Princeton does, most teams on the East Coast, aside from Fordham, don't have that top end talent. They play better as a team, I think, which makes them very formidable. Princeton rolls out 7 foreigners and a lot of talent, but their team is, I haven't seen them be quite as cohesive as Harvard. Harvard, on the other hand, is like the only team in the country without a foreigner on their roster.
Yeah, in D1.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they're competing with only American talent, to me, I think 1 is amazing. Yep. And 2, I got a lot of admiration. Like, hey, it's us against them. And I think that's really like galvanizing for this team. Because they're willing to go to battle. And, to beat Princeton a second time, they're going to have to be that really galvanized, cohesive team. And having watched Princeton earlier this year, they can be predictable. They lean on a couple of shooters. Specifically, you've got Pizarich and Mitrovic and Appledorn. 36% of their goals come from those 3 guys. Mm-hmm. All right. So like if they're in the game, those are their shooters. And so in their game against UCLA earlier in the year, Appledorn and Pizarich combined for 19 of the team's 20 total 41 shots. So in other games, it's Mitrovic and Pizarich. So it's going to be Pizarich shooting quite a bit, and then maybe Appledorn, maybe Mitrovic, maybe a combination of the 2. So I am excited to see how this plays out, because I think Harvard is a team that we know they can beat Princeton because they've done it this year. That's not a fluke, right? It was a very tightly contested game. We know they can win. Can they pull it off after a tough game against Brown, in their semifinal?
Sure. Love it. Love the competition within these conferences and how it feels like it just isn't guaranteed anywhere that one team will roll everyone else. How can Harvard stop this Princeton team?
Yeah, again, I think this is going to be very competitive. The first thing Harvard needs to do is to not go down. So even in the game that they won, they were down 3-0 immediately, and then down 5-2 with 4 minutes left in the second. And they won that game. In the game they lost, they went down 3-0. It was like, okay, right? Like they got to come out and they got to play early and play well early to stop that initial Princeton attack. They're going to need to allow James Rozolis Hill to work against Mitrovic, get him a couple early exclusions. James will. If you eliminate Mitrovic as a threat from the top of this offense by forcing him into foul trouble, you narrow their options pretty greatly. And now you're guarding really 2 guys versus 3, right? So you're 66%. You've gotten rid of 33% of their attack there. So for me, that's huge if they can get to him early. Both centers at Harvard give Princeton trouble. Mott Stoddart out of Harvard Westlake is the second one. And it's interesting because in watching this team lately, where most teams will go double post, Harvard will actually allow for James to play outside, as we talked about, which is very unique. Can you imagine having a dominant center like James, who's 6'6"? He slides outside, and now he's a very lethal outside shooter. Goes cross cage on you, skip near. He's very dynamic in that sense, right? It's not common, and so it creates some matchup issues. He's almost super utility, and it is special.
Center like that gets like pulled out of set. You're like, oh great, we've taken out their center, their massive threat. Oh shoot, he can put it away from the outside.
Yeah, exactly. And so with Harvard, you just don't know where those shots are going to come from. And it's an exciting thing for both Harvard and kind of terrifying at times, I think, for Princeton. So you got to know where James Rozolis Hill is at all times when he's in the pool. Otherwise, he's going to, at his height, his size, and his speed, he's going to make you pay. And to that degree, right, we are going to have James Rozolis Hill and Coach Ted Minnis of Harvard coming up next on this episode of Water Polo Wednesday. All right, and welcome to the show, Coach Ted Minnis and James Rozolis Hill from Harvard. It is so great to have you both here. Thank you for taking the time after practice today. How has the preparation been going for your upcoming conference championship tournament?
Still got a week, so I'm excited that we still got time to prep. Like everyone knows, are you ready? I was like, no, I got 4 days of practice left. So I think that's huge. But it's been a good prep. It's rivalry games. Hopefully we'll play 2 rivalry games here, and so I'm excited. It's been good prep.
And James, how are you feeling going into this?
I feel good. I'm getting healthy at the right time. Body feels good. I'm getting treatment every day. And I'm excited. This is the most excited I've been for a playoff run yet. So.
And you guys certainly have a team to be excited about. You split the season with Princeton 1-1. You've had you've had a number of good wins for yourself. James, as a center, obviously you've had an incredible season. You were great in high school. It's carried over into college. We've noticed that you're also quite dangerous from the outside, and we don't see this with a lot of centers, right? It's very rare. Is that part of the game plan, or is that just happens where you're that athletic and good enough to shoot from the outside and teams maybe don't realize it?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting part of my game. I wouldn't confine myself to one position. I feel like any position I play, I'm going to be the best player in the pool when I do it. And I just have a knack for getting open, just seeing the pool. It is part of our game plan, just rotating me around. I don't want to be stuck in one position. Ted makes good adjustments about seeing the defense where we can attack it. So, I don't enjoy being confined to one position. We kind of just go with the flow of the game and see where I can go.
It's certainly more fun when you're able to, pull up and shoot like a pull-up jumper or take it inside. It does create quite the dynamic when other teams don't know what you're going to do. And Ted, go ahead.
It's more fun for us. I don't know if it's more fun for other teams. We got to figure out where he's going to be. I think it makes it more difficult to scheme. I think I look back at like the Navy game, and we started him on the outside on their lefty, and just went right to disrupting there, and it kind of changed the rhythm of the game for them. I don't think, so I think it's like it's good for us, but I think it's tough for other teams to kind of see like where are we going to play him, what are we going to do, and how are we going to scheme. And then you have to have several different schemes, I would think, to stop him.
Yeah, it's almost like a super utility player, if you will, that he's able to just do a lot of different things. And smart of you to go after Kiefer Black. He was on the show last week, and, I mean, what a talent he is. And you take him out of the game, that the whole team, the complexity of that team totally changes. So, Ted, you split the series with Princeton, and, they're a good team. Talk to us about playing these guys a third time now in the finals. Assuming you get there, which we're confident you will, how do you keep your team from being too predictable? And I guess maybe you alluded to that a little bit there.
First I'm going to say is like there is no way we're just thinking about Princeton. We have a rivalry game against Brown. Brown's a very good team.
Yeah,
it's a flip. We're going to have to beat them 3 times for us to get to Princeton. So in no way, if, ands, or buts, have we been not thinking or talking about Brown. Today, all our practice was focused on Brown. Now, to get to your question about Princeton, I mean, they're a very talented team.
Sure.
Dusty does a very good job of coaching them. They sub, they're deep. They go 6 for 6 on their subbing rotation. They bring 3 lefties in that can do multiple things. Their centers are very, what's a good word for them, James? Slippery, the way they play. I mean, they could shoot the ball from anywhere. So they're a tough matchup. But I think it's a true rivalry game when you look at us in Princeton. I think when you look at the last 10 games, I think we're 5-5 against them or something like that. I think last year we were the only team on the East Coast to beat them. And this year we're one of 2 teams on the East Coast to beat them, which we take a lot of pride in that we've been able to have some success against them. But on the flip side, like they're going to come in if we get the opportunity to play them. Like they're a very, very talented team, and we're going to have to play our best game like we did back at their place to beat them.
Yeah, and they're getting a bye. Is that going to factor in, you think, from a freshness standpoint for them, having only played 1 game, whereas you'll have to play 2?
Look, Hathaway's coach is the college coach, and it's one of my best friends, and we're playing con.
Matt Anderson.
So no disrespect to Matt Anderson. We'll go out there, we'll play that game.
Yeah.
I doubt James hits the water in that game, and we'll get him, he'll get him some rest, and some other guys where we'll just kind of have to get through that game and get to the Brown game. So the bye makes a difference. I think the biggest thing for me, and it was a tiebreaker why we didn't play in that game is, I mean, you don't have to play in a rivalry game against Brown in the semis like that.
Yeah.
That's a difference, So there's no lie. I think we talked about wanting to win that and be the number one seed. But I don't think we're shying away from playing Brown at all and their talented team.
Sure. And you've had a couple of close matches with them this year. You've come out on top, but like you said, hard to beat a team 3 times in a row. Now, I wanted to ask you about scheduling. You came out west. You had big games versus Pacific, San Jose State, Fordham, CBU, Santa Clara. They were challenging games, but that's part of a season for any team is to have challenging games, a tough road trip, whatever it may be. Talk to us about how that's helped this team come together and be better late in the season, and maybe what improvements that you've seen in your team throughout the course of the year, because who you finish the year as is not necessarily who you start the year as.
Yeah, again, I think that road trip to California is always good for us. That's the first stretch of our season where we kind of feel ready, I guess, to play these 4 high-level teams in a row in back-to-back games. This year, I mean, we went 1-3 there, so not ideal, but I feel like every game we've lost this year out of the 4 or 5 losses have been by 1 goal. So it's just built a certain resiliency in this team. And hopefully, those 1 goal losses become 1 goal, 2 goal wins at the end of the season, because that's all that matters. Stringing together 3 games and then hopefully making NCAA and just seeing what happens in that tournament.
I think Mason Hunt said it at the beginning of the year, like we could go 0-29 and to go 3-0 in the postseason, and no one will remember the 0-29, and that we haven't been goal oriented or result oriented. It's about the process and getting better throughout it. And I think every game we lost, it sucks. Like, I'll tell you right now, James and I are 2 very big competitors, and we hate to lose. I'll speak for myself. I hate losing more than I like winning. But we did find things that we did well in those games that we can take into this postseason. So I think it is definitely a process. I call it a staircase. We got to climb that staircase throughout the season, and it's how you're playing in a week in November. And hopefully we're going to kick the door down and give ourselves a chance to win a championship.
Sure. It reminds me of a phrase we have in our house, which is better, never best. And that continual improvement as you keep going on is great to hear. Now, James, against Princeton, in both of your matches against them, you guys went down early in the game. In the game you won, you were down 5-2 in the middle of the second period, which I have to tell you is not very common to go down 5-2 with 4 minutes left in the second and come out with a win. What do you guys need to do to bring the energy and start out not down 5-2 middle of the second, right? Ready to roll to stem some of these slower starts? Or do you guys just don't care about having a lead until the very end? Is that part of the process of hey, we're going to spot you a few goals and we'll come back and make you feel really bad? How does that work for you?
No, not at all. Yeah, tell us how we do that, James, please, because it's driving me crazy.
Yeah,
I was shocked, guys. Honestly, as somebody who just researches and watched a lot of games, I was really surprised at how many games you go down early. And I'm just curious, what are you going to do differently this time around?
Yeah, it's definitely been a point of emphasis throughout the season. I mean, we went down 3-0 both times we played Princeton. So it's just an internal thing. We have to match their energy. They hate us just as much as we hate them. It's a rivalry game at the end of the day. We're friends outside the water, but once we get in there, we hate each other. It's not no minced words. So we got to match their energy. They come with high energy. They play 12, 15 guys, and just we kind of gotta slow down their initial starts and then execute our game plan on our side. But it's just weathering the storm, matching their energy, coming out with more energy, and just being ready to go in those first 3 minutes. Not going down, not giving up the first goal, getting a stop. It's just the little things, just winning each possession to start the game and then just going with the flow.
Yeah, and if you can't get excited and up for an NC2A playoff, basically a playoff game, right, to go to the NC2As, assuming you beat Brown, I don't know what would get you excited. Like, why are we playing the sport, right? So, I'm also. Go ahead, Ted.
I'll say, like, the first game we did go down 5-2, but I thought it was like the first goal I think was on a penalty, which could have been questionable, and then they got a 6-on-5 goal. We missed a tip in. I think we missed a pen too early in that. So like that first game when we were down 3-0 or 5-2, I felt like we were playing pretty well, and they caught some breaks and they capitalized on some mistakes. I won't mince words. The second game, they came in and they jumped on us early, and it was a different feeling. They were really motivated in that game and really well prepared, and they jumped on us 3-0, and it was like timeout. Let's settle this down. The first game, I don't even think I called a timeout when they went up 3-0. I just called a play off the line, and we went and played it that way. So it was a difference of the two games. I think the road team has won each game, so hopefully that plays into our advantage going to Princeton championships.
Yeah, at Princeton will certainly be something. And James, as a center or a utility player, do you feel, I mean, this is a question we actually get quite a bit, is how is the game different on the East Coast? Do you feel the game is played any differently in your conference than maybe your West Coast road trip? Are there different styles? Is it more physical in one place or the other? Or approaches? Maybe the refereeing's different. Anything you notice it's like a little bit different that you have to adjust your game for?
I mean, at the end of the day, water polo is water polo. I don't think there's any like glaring differences. I mean, it's pretty simple at the end of the day. Maybe you need to adjust to the reffing a little bit. It's going to be different than California. California, you kind of, growing up, you got to play a little rougher. Your fouls are a little bit heavier. And here it's a lighter game, I'd say. So that's like the only adjustment you need to make. Teams are just as competitive on the upper level here as the West Coast, I'd say. And I mean, it's not adjustment. Water polo is simple at the end of the day. It's just a game. It's just
a game.
Adjust it to it. You go, you play, and
I wouldn't be doing it if it was hard. I'm not that smart.
That's why you're a coach at the top university in maybe in the world, because you're not that smart, Ted.
I worked there. I went to San Jose State.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've seen that movie before, I think. Now, Ted, speaking of you, you were my wife's first coach, and she would be remiss if I didn't, tell you she thinks a world of you. And you've been coaching there at Harvard for 15 years. You've done a heck of a job. Obviously, getting into Harvard is not simple nor easy. How have you been able to maintain sustained success year over year? Because it seems like Harvard is always coming up in the conversation out east.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm very lucky to I've had an opportunity to coach a lot of great people over the years in my journey getting here. And I always say, like, those teams that like Hathaway played on and the ones before, and my Castellea teams and Stanford teams, like, they taught me how to be who I am as a coach, and I've never changed who I am as a coach. I care more about my guys and my girls outside of the pool than I do inside of the pool, and I want them to be, better people, and I want them to achieve the goals, because at the end of the day, James is not going to get rich because of water polo. He's going to get rich because he's going to be an amazing attorney, and he's going to do some great things in the world, and that's what he's set up to do. Mm-hmm. I think I'm most proud of, like, we just, in our last game of the regular season was our 20th win, and that's 10 years in a row that we've had 20 wins here. When I got here, to 2 years combined, we had 11 total wins on the men's side. So I think the first thing is like there's been consistency. Over the course of Harvard water polo, no one had been here longer than 6 years as a head coach in year 15. Yeah. I think the best thing for me has been that I recruit to a great university and it sells itself.
Yeah.
And then I figured out I'm not Stanford, I'm not Princeton, we're Harvard, and this is what we have to offer. And when I find those great, amazing athletes and students that want what we have to offer, you get lucky. And you get lucky sometimes to get a player like this and his teammates and the ones that have come before him that have committed to come and be a part of this family. So I think that's part of what's been sustainable. It's not getting easier. I think the East Coast, back to your last question, the East Coast has really upped its level of water polo. I mean, the things Fordham are doing right now, they're an amazing team. And I think they could go on a deep run. I'd be shocked if they didn't come out of their conference. Not any disrespect to anybody over there, but they've been handling it pretty well. I thought we played them really tough at their place, 1-goal game. Again, those 1-goal games that we learned from. Dusty's been doing it at a high level since he got here, and they've had a lot of success. And, Felix's teams are playing really well. So you're looking at this. John McBride's had some really good teams coming out of Bucknell. Just the level of East Coast water polo has risen over the last 10 years. And so I think, kids now are saying like it's a viable option to come out here. I also think you're going to see more of the level rise, because I think when we get to this roster limits of 24, right, these schools aren't going to be able to take these kids that just come and play on their roster for a year or two, try to win a national championship and move on. And that's going to kind of spread it out a little, and you're going to see more kids being able or coming out east or going to these other conferences and playing for these Pacifics and these Santa Barbaras and the Long Beach States and stuff like that. So I think that's going to be good for water polo, in my opinion. But I think it takes a process. I got a good staff with me. I've had a good staff. Cassie Churnside over at Michigan, and Jackie Pacino is over at USC now, and I like the staff we have here now. So I'm very lucky.
And you touched on it. You're the only team though that's in that top echelon of teams without a single foreign player. And I was like, I'm impressed, Ted. I suppose you could consider Mott a foreigner, but he went to Harvard Westlake, right? He matriculated to you. We won't count that against you. But Princeton, for example, loading up on foreigners. Fordham is the second most foreigners of any team in the country, right? Even Santa Clara and CBU have dipped their toe into that foreign pool. In fact, I had a hard time finding a team that didn't have a foreigner, right? You don't have any. So how do you continue to stay competitive in today's game that's seemingly shifting further and further into, we're going to bring foreigners into our programs, right? How do you stay competitive? And have you considered that approach, making a shift?
Look, I'm going to take the best player available, whether they're from the United States or they're from Eastern Europe. Like that's how the recruiting process goes. I think the one thing for me is that as I'm out there recruiting, I mean, I don't want to say we're a niche thing, but I think what we have to offer is different, and we're a family. I mean, I think James will agree, like this is a family. And so we're out there recruiting, like these kids, we have to be as much of a fit for them as they have to be for us. Right. And that's, I think, the chemistry in the locker room and the chemistry with me and my athletes and my staff is a big part of why we have this success. Like my guys, like James will run through a wall for me. Right. And I'll run through a wall for him. Right. And that's the thing we have. Right. And we want to win. And you get a bunch of people together that want to do that. They're going to drive for success, and they're going to push each other healthily, I hope, in the water. And that's what's going to help us. We've had foreigners here for sure, and we'll have foreigners here. I have some foreigners on my women's team, so it's just really a part of the cycle and the recruiting. And, right now we had Alex James from Canada, if you count that as international. So, sure. I think it's not going to be always going to be bringing in a full class of foreigners, though. And I like recruiting the kids in the U.S. too. So,
yeah. Well, very cool. So, James, you were a phenom in high school, and that's obviously carried into college. You've been a fantastic player there during your time there. What is your plan post-college, aside from becoming an attorney? Have you given much thought to continuing to play pro or potentially making a run at 2028 Olympics?
I hope he makes a run at 2028. That's what I hope. But we haven't had that conversation. And
I like that you're a family dad, but I'd love to know what the kid here has to say about his future.
We'll see. I'm taking it one step at a time. I'll have discussions with my family, with Ted, to kind of see what happens in the 2028 cycle. Where I go to law school is also an important factor. East Coast, West Coast, Central America, who knows?
Central America?
We'll see.
What's in Central America?
Nothing. I don't know.
That was a weird thing to say. Like there's a law school there that you have in your... No. I'm sorry.
Anywhere. Yeah, I could go anywhere for law school. So we'll kind of... And I'll still be young. I'm young for my grade. I'm young and like the whole retrospect of things, so I'll still be in shape for everything, and we'll see. We'll see. I'm kind of just, what Ted knows about me. I like to go with the flow of things, so we'll kind of just see what happens. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So yeah, I'm just taking it one step at a time.
Okay.
And I think that's something that I don't think people really understand about like James and other athletes that I have here. Like, there's so much more to James than just a water polo player. James does a very, very good job in the classroom. He works very hard at his academics. The amount of times me and him have met about how he's going to find help and get the help he needs in the class. I remember the day he finished math. It was a good day at Harvard Water Polo when he was done with math. But like, he's worked so hard, and like, water polo is just a part of who he is, and I think that's what we find here.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I mean, look, you guys obviously have a very special bond. It's awesome to see that true family side of things come out of it, and for you guys to reference each other the way you do is frankly makes me very happy. And so last question for you both here. This is something we like to ask players and coaches. What metric do you guys focus on most? Is there a certain metric that you emphasize that is like above all, where you're like, hey, maybe it's 6-on-5 percentage. Sometimes it's where the shots are coming from, what defensive stops, counter goals, anything in particular you guys, because you guys don't really publish your stats here, Ted. Like, I'm at my wit's end with some of these teams that don't publish stats. I think everybody should have to publish the exact same stats nationally. It's my plug for that. So I don't know.
Can I tell you why?
It's a competitive thing, I would assume.
I work extremely hard doing work, and I work extremely hard scouting. And I don't want to give someone an advantage that doesn't do the work, because they're looking at our stats and pick up little things that they pick up off of that, and they don't have to do the same amount of work. So why would it be easy for them? So they'll be out after Northeast Water Polo Championships.
Okay.
Yeah,
so that being the case, it's the same answer I get. Yeah.
Everyone gives me a hard time, and they're like, and I'm like, no, like, when I go, we'll do scout on teams and we won't know anything about a team. And how many times have we come into a meeting, we're like, well, they published their stats, so here are their top 3 scorers. Here is the person who's doing this. Here's who's done it, right? And it's like, okay, we've done our scout. Just stop those 3 and we're good, right? So.
All right, but that aside, we obviously can't see your stats. So what would you say you focus on? What's a metric you guys are striving to achieve?
I would say all of the above that you said. I mean, we set the goal of what we want our 6-on-5 percentage to be, whether it's like 50%, 60%, and then we flip it and our 5-man percentage should be there too. We talk about how many goals we want to give up in a game. Like we talk about like we're a team that can score. I mean, one of the things is like James has however many goals he has this year, and he broke the record, but he's scoring 6-7 goals against the top teams in the country. It's not like he's running score on somebody. And so like, I think we can score with a lot of people. So for us, I would say first would be focused on getting stops on defense, and keeping teams under a certain amount. Turnovers, we talk about plus minus on our turnovers, where we want to keep that number at. So I don't think we really focus on one. I think every phase of the game we're setting hopefully tangible goals that we can achieve that are going to help us be successful.
Understandable.
Metric in my head as well as 6-on-5, 5-man. I mean, when you look at college water polo and professional water polo, all those games are pretty dead even in the front court. Like, everyone's talented, everyone's athletic, right? It's really in those man up and man down advantages. If you win those, you have a good shot at winning the game. You obviously aren't going to win every game, even if you win the ejection battle and your conversions. But I think in my head, those two are probably the most important at the college level.
And I'll tell you, going into the championship, like we just talked about it before we walked into the office, was with the team. It was like, we have to win the 5-man battle. Like, we have to take pride in winning the 5-man battle, because that's where the game is going to be won, if we can get stops on 5-man.
Makes sense. And I think we hear a lot of that. So it's good to hear consistency across the board with the number of coaches. Well, look, the episode's yours at this point. Studio's yours. Any shout outs, anything you'd like to share with everybody, the people who watch this?
Well, first I want to shout out your wife. I'm so like flattered, and it makes me feel so good that I had that impact on her. She was an amazing one to coach. I loved coaching her. And so please tell her hi. And I love being able to see you and your family on Facebook, and get to see the pictures. So I do see them. So that's great. And I want to shout out just you for doing this. I think this is a great platform. Anything we can do to promote our sport and drive it forward, I think is really important. And the last thing I'll do, and I'll let James, is one of the things I'm most proud of is the Boys and Girls Club, like the work we're doing with the Boys and Girls Club here in Boston. And we're trying to grow water polo here through the Boys and Girls Club. And so I think our program has done a great job there. So
it's awesome, Ted.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for doing everything. I know we touched base probably 4, 5, 6 months ago. I don't know, but just thank you for everything that you've done. It's been great getting to know you and kind of talking to you throughout the summer and now. Shout out Ted for giving me an opportunity to come here. And shout out my family. Love you guys.
Awesome. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. I know you've got a busy week. Good luck this week in training. And of course, we'll be watching your first round game, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Go Crim.
Good. Go Crim.
All right. See ya.
Thank you.
Another amazing interview, and we actually have, for you visual people out there, you've built out the conference and what that looks like for us, Wes. Let's see that.
Yeah, I wasn't happy with what was generally available, so I just went ahead and built out my own brackets here.
Typical here.
Yeah, so we've got Princeton. Thanks for that, Clay. We got Princeton with the bye. They're going to have the winner of MIT and Iona. Candidly, Princeton should roll just fine in their semifinal. On the other side, you got Brown taking on LIU, and Connecticut College taking on Harvard. Harvard should be the favorite, and Brown the favorite there. Both teams have not lost to their opponents this season. So you'll see Brown, I think, come through here. And if we run through it, we'll go ahead and start our tournament. I think you'll probably see Iona get the win there. And then you'll see Brown get the win here and Harvard here. And so what you'll end up with is this in your final four of Northeast. I think Princeton's far and away a better team than Iona, if I do say so. And this is going to be a tough game. But look, I'm high on Harvard this year. And so I think you do see Harvard and Princeton, a third matchup, a rubber match, if you will, as they've split the regular season, as we've talked about. Clay, should we go ahead and fill this bracket out and who we think is going to win here?
I think we know, or can predict.
No, I'm going to go with Harvard. I think Harvard upsets them at Princeton. The tournament is held at Princeton. I'm a big fan of Harvard, big fan of what they're doing there. And look, Princeton's a great team. But I do think Harvard has what it takes if they play well to sustain that Princeton attack.
All right. Yep. And that marks the end of this episode of Water Polo Wednesday.
Thanks so much.